Yeah, they're in my office. I could get you some. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't hear her say your name. So all I heard was Pastor Adam. I was trying to share it. I didn't hear the name at all. So, not good. I'm good. Good. So, everybody have a decent weekend so far. It's been good. I may be, if there's a couple of weird little technical difficulties, bear with me. I'm troubleshooting being able to offer our HD classes virtually for our virtual audience. I don't know if you sat in 8:30 service or not. We have Eric and Ellie here, our Zone 12 admins. They're all the way from California. Sorry to spoil the surprise if you haven't sat in service yet. But for individuals such as themselves, we don't have a way currently for them to be able to take in these types of classes. Uh, Long term, I definitely want to be able to have a polished recording that people can watch on demand. But I also like the element of people being able to engage with this live when it's happening. It gives a different element and level to the information and how it's taught and how people engage with it. Right. I'm always a huge in person type of person. So, like you saying, I can just watch it on demand, I can be like, yeah, okay. But you're saying, well, if I can tune in virtually, I might be more apt to actually do that myself. So, if the things get a little bit weird or I'm like looking funny, it's because I'm trying to figure out why it's not recording or why I'm not seeing the online audience here. Yeah. No, last week was not recorded, unfortunately. But I can get you. I have handouts left, so I can get those over to you for that end. So, okay, does that make sense for everyone? Everyone okay with that? So, um, yeah, there's a few of you guys that weren't here for the last one, so I'll make sure I should have enough handouts to get those out. Yeah, like the point was that the evangelism was very life changing, but that was like really like. I think two things to really kind of help push us into this next class um, would be one that it's we had read that now within the Old Testament, within the Ten Commandments, right? That if you break one of those commandments, you do what? You're sinning, right? And so the Sabbath was is attached to that law and attached to that. But none of us really look at, well, if I don't take a Sabbath, it just is whatever. We don't look at it like it's a strike against God. Because that's what sin is. Sin is creating space and distance between us and God, breaking that communion that we have with him. So I think that was something that landed very heavy last week. And then also the way that we finished it, if you don't recall and remember, I'll re-ask the question here today. How many of you guys have been praying that God would give you rest, that God would give you peace of mind, that God would be able to heal your body for something that God's already given you through the Sabbath? And it is for God. When you're saying, God, give me rest, give me peace of mind, help things be still and quiet. And he said, well, why aren't you taking the Sabbath? I've already given you this whole command that's revolving around this thing you keep asking me for. This. Yeah.
on that.
Right.
Yeah, I need to unplug. I need to go. So I'm.
And to continue in that same lane or piggyback off that, however you want to put that, be sure that you train them that it is your Sabbath. If you start responding, even though you've made that announcement, they're not going to care that you made the announcement. That's also another thing, and we can reiterate it again, is that if you are intentionally taking your Sabbath and you're, well, people aren't respecting it, well, stop. Typically, they're not respecting it because you aren't respecting it and you're responding. You're engaging with work emails, you're engaging with Microsoft at whatever level it is, replying whatever, you can train those in. Like if you've already made that announcement, like you've already then the reason why they might be engaging with you is that you need to retrain those habits and train those habits out of you to where they know, like, oh, they realize, oh, you're not responding. Oh, yeah, that's right. Today's their Sabbath. Today is their day of rest. No wonder why I'm not getting a response. Oh, yeah, I remember that now that they mentioned that. That might take a while, right? They're not the ones practicing it. They're not the ones intentionally trying to pursue a day of rest. So it could take them, like, if it takes us 60 to 90 days to make a new habit, think about this other individual that isn't even practicing this habit. It might take you twice as long to train them on it, right? Because they're not going to probably be reaching out to you every single time it is your Sabbath. They might be, right, depending on the demands that you have or the demands that certain individuals, family members, and friends and so on want access to you for, right? Because sometimes some people, how we might have these people in our lives that always need us for something, right? They're not just calling the chit chat. I would say that you would take a Sabbath from those individuals as well, right? And you would let them know that, like, hey, I'm not ignoring you, but Tuesday, it ain't happening. If you need something, you can reach out to da 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 whatever if it's an emergency and so on and so forth. But I think yesterday was really good, and today will hopefully continue through. 11 verses 28 through 30, and then somebody to find Mark chapter 2 verse 27. I know that we've shared these before. I'm going to say these again and again, but um, everything that we do from this class and from our lives should be founded in Scripture. Should be able to stand on it. Should be able to point towards it. And I think these two here are key from what I mentioned at the top. Like a lot of us have been asking for this. And then we forget the purpose of Sabbath as well. So whoever has Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30, go ahead. Order. You got Matthew? 27. What? That the Sabbath was made for people, not us for the Sabbath. So, in other words, Sabbath is not meant to be a burden. So, as we go through this, I don't want this to seem legalistic. It's not the goal. That's not the idea to enforce religious law because it's not meant to be a burden. What I want to hopefully do is push us to the idea that we've been given a gift that we don't realize that we have. Right? Like I was saying, a lot of us ask for rest, we ask for peace and things to slow down, and there's a gift sitting right in front of us that we're not unwrapping, that we're not engaging with, that's been given to us to be able to have. And as we shared earlier in the first class, I don't know how many people I gave anxiety to. I shared a lot of stats and statistics of how bad our culture is with burnout and the cause and effect that it's having on us and how we're engaging with it. And we're just giving ourselves over to these different things that's giving and causing harm to us. And so modern research shows that, but it also shows us how much we need this gift of Sabbath. And I want to be able to share a variety of different things with you of why modern research shows this, not just on the side that I shared last week of like, okay, this is what's happening, this is what's on the rise. We shared like it was like 72% of Gen Zers are experiencing high levels of stress like never before. 59% of people are getting less than 6 hours worth of sleep every single night. There is, what was it? It was 27% is getting less than 5 hours of sleep every single night. So I presented that not to be able to like see, but I presented a lot of information to be able to point that you are not the only person that feels this way. This is not just some kind of weird phenomenon that's picked you out and is picking on you only. This is something that a lot of people are facing, and then also help point to the need that yes, we definitely need consistent weekly rhythms of rest and of Sabbath, and how this could be able to improve our lives and how we even engage with society and different things like that. So there's this lower stress and anxiety that one study examines that effects of a Sabbath keeping on mental health introduced to participants that did a weekly Sabbath practice over an 8-week period showed reduced consistent work pressure, showed creating predictable weekly rest rhythms, restoring a sense of control over their lives, and strengthening relational connections with others. So these participants reported measurable decreases in all of these things within an 8-week period that they did or practiced a Sabbath. Then there's reducing burnout. There was an international study of 1,300 teachers, United States, Canada, Indonesia, Paraguay, and they wanted to know whether or not Sabbath practices affected burnout levels, because we shared how high the levels of burnout are, like I shared again in top, and I kind of revisited that. And the findings, they say, were clear that it showed this, that people who practice Sabbath rhythms reported significantly lower burnout levels than those who did not. Burnout levels were about 40 to 49% of standard deviation lower among Sabbath-keeping teachers compared to non-Sabbath teachers. In this academic research, a 0.4 to 0.5 standard deviation difference is considered a meaningful effect size, meaning the difference is large enough to matter in real life. So in other words, this isn't just kind of like something like, it might be a good eye. The researchers weren't coming out of this thinking, well, maybe there are some benefits to this idea of Sabbath. They're saying, no, that they were seeing close to 50% difference in actual people's lives in recovering and not being finding themselves within burnout. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Trying to work. But it just like it kept dwindling back to, because it's always something to do. But I am once I get the other packet that I try to go back to that, because I did see a less. I even ended up going to the doctor and them putting heart monitors on me because of stress. And the doctor was like, "You're stressed out. You need to at some point after work chill out, stop what you're doing, leave work at work." But it's kind of hard to leave work at work because it's always, something to do. The difference to, you know what, stop texting me.
Right.
I took the connection of the emails off my phone. The hours, I'm like, I should not be responding to an email to a principal, teacher. Did help for a while, and now I'm back where I.
It's more than that, and I'll get to what it really can be at the end of it. But something I want to point out on why I felt like this was important is what do we see here? We see United States, Canada, Indonesia, Paraguay. Doesn't matter what kind of background that you have, this is effective. My culture this or my culture that, we just do this. No, like burnout. The stats that I shared last week saying that the United States faces some of the highest globally, right? But it's not just something that you can say, well, because of my culture, different things like this is breaking beyond that, but this has a benefit regardless of maybe a background or cultural standing that you come from. We try to make sure here at Crossover, and I love it, that we respect all cultures, but burnout's not good for anybody, no matter what cultural background that you have from, and the effectiveness that a Sabbath can have when you have a weekly rhythm of rest. It really does matter and affects you. Then we also have Liberty University did a study in 2022 This study examined how practice Sabbath influenced stress and anxiety, and participants implemented weekly Sabbath practices. So we see some improvements here, which is 22% reduction in report stress levels, 18% reduction in anxiety symptoms, 24% increase of overall well-being scores. Sabbath as a holistic practice, right? So this is just attached to people that just were practicing this rhythm, celebrating the Sabbath as a holistic health practice, this transformative power, just different sanctuary time that we see that greater emotional awareness, 72% improvement, improved relationships by 64%, better work-life balance by 68%, increased spiritual connection, 81%. Hormone chase. So then there was a study of 285 adults who practiced weekly Sabbath observances. Then these researchers found what? And just for some context, cortisol is the body's primary stress hormone. Like I shared that in the last class, like not getting good sleep doesn't help you reset your cortisol levels. And so from this study out of 285 adults, they found this, that cortisol levels were significantly lower following Sabbath observances, indicating reduced psychological stress in the body. Researchers studied 285 adults who practiced the Sabbath and measured their stress hormone, cortisol. They found that the cortisol levels dropped by 9 to 10% after the Sabbath, and among men dropped around 12%. So you practicing this, you get just a little bit higher reset. And I just think that's because women run naturally stressful all the time. Like you guys overanalyze everything. Sorry if I'm making generalizations at your expense. That is not my intent. But I just found that like there's a lot, like with guys, we say half as many words as you do in a day, right? So there's different things in there. So that could be the cause of that. That's attached to that. But man, recognize that when we do this, it's great. So in other words, taking a day of rest didn't just feel relaxing. It's not just a feeling you have, it's measurable that your stress goes lower, your cortisol levels drop because you decided to be able to practice the Sabbath. Sabbath isn't just kind of rest for your body, it's also rest for your mind. It begins to calm down when you practice a Sabbath. Then there's another study on better sleep and physical recovery. This study showed Sabbath observances in the community that people practice weekly rhythms. They had more stable sleep patterns, so they had more consistent sleeping patterns, like they actually had real rest, less social jet lag, which is like irregular sleep schedules caused by your work's demands, right? So if you're up late answering those emails, those texts, and those different things, you're getting to bed later, right? 2 + 2 = 4. Like put it together, like I'm just not sleeping well. Well, you're in bed with your laptop in your lap. And then they have more consistent recovery sleep cycles. They concluded that weekly rest rhythms help stabilize the body's circadian rhythm, which is a major predictor of long-term health. When the coming every week, it recovers better. So then what are we saying? So like the more consistent you are with this, the more that you practice this, the more your body gets used to it and knows, okay, I'm going to be able to catch my breath. I'm going to be able to catch my breath. It's coming. It's around the corner. I can catch my breath. And then weekly religious service / Sabbath attendance longevity. This was done by Harvard. Sure, I have the right one here. Yeah. This is done by Harvard study examining religious service and their attendance, including the Sabbath observation. So it's not just attending church, you're pairing your attendance with a Sabbath. Now, this is for the ladies. I had something there for the men. So this study followed 74,534 women. Such a weird number. For 20 years. And they found for women, risk of death from any cause, 33%. 27% lower risk of cardiovascular death, risk of cancer death. Call back to what you mentioned with that town in California. Again, I'm not propping up Seventh-day Adventists, but they're very strict over their day of Sabbath, and they take that. They live 7 to 10 years longer. that's floating around in there. And then how about this end? The digital disconnect and stress study. This study examined the effects of disconnecting from work communications. Participants of 124 professionals, research required participants to stop checking work email after work hours for just 1 week, for just a week. And they experienced 27% reduction in daily stress levels. Improvement in sleep quality, 34% improvement in work-life balance scores. Work communications is critical for recovery and mental health. Mental and emotional well-being, when we look at the evidence, it backs and it makes it clear that with a practice Sabbath regularly and consistently, there's most certainly benefits that are flowing out of that. I think so many times we think, I can't afford to be able to take a day off. But it seems to me from the statistics we shared from the first class and what we went over today, I don't know if we can afford not to take a day of rest. It immeasurably improves everything: emotional health, strengthens your relationships, deepens your reflection, and restores a sense of purpose and meaning. People engaged in Sabbath experience more joy, better connection with family and community, and space to grow spiritually. Scripture promised this long before modern research could prove that this is something that we need. God knew this 2,000 plus years ago, that this is something that we needed to have. So Sabbath is going to do what? It's going to remind us that it was made for us, not the other way around. That's why I shared at the top that Mark 2:27, and we talked about Matthew 28, that there's this gift that we have. So all of this is pointing to the same truth and thing that we need intentionally is to be able to stop. We need to rest. We need to delight, and we need to worship. With how God designed us to flourish and live our lives. All the way back to the Genesis. This is when this was started, right? When we practice the Sabbath, we're tapping back into the image that God created us. Not just something that's like, okay, that was relaxing. Oh, it was restful. This is the whole person. This is your whole body that's being touched by this. This is your mind, body, soul, relationships. All of the studies I just read, I know it was a lot, but I wanted to be able to clearly communicate and convey, like, it isn't just one area that are showing that this improves. There are several different studies done several different ways that are showing at least 20 some odd % increase in wellness in some shape or form. Not 5 or 10. Like consistently across the board, we were seeing resting affecting your mind, body, spirit, and all of your relationships when we Sabbath. So then, if we know Sabbath is good, why don't we practice it? We see that it creates lower stress, it reduces burnout, all of these different things. It helps restore the human person. The answer is not just, well, if and I see a lot of people do this, that they think, well, if I can just manage my time better, I don't need the Sabbath. And here, if I schedule that, I schedule this, if I get my calendar lined up just right, I don't need the Sabbath, and I can make my life work better. Okay, better time management. It's not any, it's more of a cultural issue and a spiritual issue. You were saying earlier, like with abundance, because our culture is built on the values that run directly against the idea of Sabbath, right? Our culture is always saying, be productive, always be constantly achieving something, always be busy. There's this endless stimulation that comes from your phone and social media. So everything within our culture is completely opposite of this idea of stop, rest, delight, and worship. So over time, those values can become even stronger than our Sabbath, the culture of busy and hustle and all these different things. I have to be able to achieve. I always have to be able to sound busy. I have to be able to be connected and reachable. So then over time, if this is becoming greater than your idea of Sabbath and your connection with God, what does it mean that it has become? It's an idol. Idol. achieving the next goal becomes your idol. Busyness becomes your idol. How many likes and how much engagement can I get on social media becomes your idol. We get so consistently worried about what people have to say about us online, but never worried about what God has to say about us. All of these, one of these things could potentially become an idol because it becomes an idol because then we organize our lives around these things. Our calendar is formed and functioned by these things instead of by God, instead of by the idea of who we were designed to be able to be. So things we feel we cannot stop doing are these things. Things that shape your identity and they wind up shaping your worth are these things instead of God. Taking root in our culture, something interesting happens. People begin to feel guilty about resting. And then what happens? Your manager or whomever comes over to say, like, did you put that time in request off? I can't use PTO days. That's what I'm saying. And a lot of people like they bank them, they're saving them, doing whatever. They don't even roll over, right? Like that's even the worst. Like if you're in a company, like the PTO days, this is what you get, and that's what you get for the year, and you ain't used not one. Right? Like you gonna give me some more? Yeah, they could bring in and be like, you got some more? I'll take some more. You got some more? You got any more of those PTO days? Where they at? Right? So we it's so interesting. Then we feel guilty, right? You always feel like, oh, I should be doing more. You always feel like you should be producing more, always accomplishing more. And that mindset of Sabbath almost feels impossible then, right? When you become into this hustle and everything that's about it. So before we talk about how to practice Sabbath, we need to recognize some things first about the cultural forces that are at play when it comes to Sabbath and what's working and fighting against us to be able to Sabbath. And if we don't identify them, they will quietly sabotage your rest. If you don't know what you're fighting against, right? How many of my OGs remember like the G.I. Joe saying, right? No one is half the battle. In my G.I. Joe? No? Okay. I was G.I. Joe. Come on now. Right. So knowing is half the battle of what's fighting against you. So you identify them and you know how to be able to combat them. So I think there's four cultural idols that make Sabbath difficult for modern rest. The idol of productivity, the idol of achievement, the idol of business, and the idol of digital distraction. Productivity. My value comes from what I produce. Now, I don't know how it works for you, ladies, but I know in our world, men, what is the first thing that usually typically happens after you give somebody your name? What do you do? I feel like we've been programmed. You've got to say right after, hey, it's my name. You have a conversation. Oh, and I do da 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 da. Or maybe you ladies, you talk about what did you accomplish today? Oh, this was what was on my to-do list, and I got da 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 done, and I got da 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 left. Girl, I think I can get there. I got it. Right? You share with each other how successful you and your achievements your to-do list was. Or we share what we're working on. Yeah, yeah. But never is anyone ever saying, "Are you resting well?" Say it that way. They're just like, "Boy, you look tired." That's right, right. And they're like, "Well, you look tired." And they're like, and then you go in and say, "Yeah, I'm busy," and then you're right back at it again. That this idol of productivity, knowing, and you can introduce these into your conversations with other believers. You could instead of asking those questions, you can ask, "Are you living at peace with God today?" Yeah, Not a Moses law. Sabbath was something that happened at the very beginning. So that would have been something that if you were pursuing God, you would have been practicing the Sabbath. Also, why like in the first class we shared, if you recall, you might not have. I didn't make those types of connections. Was that Sabbath is not a religious law because it was instituted before the. It's more than just a religious law. Yeah, they would have had it. But you also know that before they sinned, right? God instituted what on us? Will work from the sweat of our brow. Work was instituted once we left the garden. And so then after that, because during that time, they might have been doing some different things. And, and I'm just, there's room for me to be wrong here in this and on that. But I believe from my understanding of scripture, what I read, that it would have had more of that would have been more so happened after they would have broke law, and then they would have been constituted constant communion in the garden with God, right? Yeah, so our culture assumes that constant production equals success. Like if I always say that I'm producing, then I'm always going to be able to parallel or connect that to I am successful. But the challenge is this belief. Sabbath says if you are valuable because you are created in the image of God, not because of what you've accomplished. Can feel uncomfortable, right? So when we stop producing, we are forced to confront the question, who am I if I'm not working, producing something today? Even think to kind of make that connection, especially higher level individuals or any individual, right? If that is something that you're supporting your family on, all these different other things, that I would believe that there's a good correlation that could be made between them. Is doing what? It retrains the heart to believe that the identity comes from God's grace and not your performance. Hard for a lot of us to be able to do if, depending on how you were raised, you grow up like you always had to feel like I have to show that I've accomplished or I did this to be able to receive love from my parents, from family members, or from whoever, right? The accolades conveyed love to you. And God is saying that's not the same thing here with me. Not to be able to have to love you because you've put before me a medal or an award for me to be able to love you. Am I underneath the idol of productivity? And then I would ask you this question: do you feel guilty when you're not accomplishing something? Yes, I was. My wife is always telling me, "Why don't you just sit down somewhere?" Like, what? I got. Do you know what are the things I got to do? You feel guilty when you're not accomplishing something. Idol of achievement. Always be moving forward. Goes through your mind like, okay, I've achieved this. What's this next thing? Or you already have your next thing, but you have the 5 things after that next thing. Always improve, always advance, always optimize, always grow. Nothing is ever enough, right? With people would ask, like, and like, I remember somebody asked me one time, they're like, would you rather have a big, nice house, fancy car? And I'm like, I'd like to have a big, nice house. And then they turn around and flip the whole script on me and say, well, I want both. And I'm like, I didn't even know both wasn't even, I had A and B. Where's the C option even coming from? Right? I didn't, you ain't, how you gonna make me feel like some type of way that I'm not achieving enough when I didn't even know there was a C option on this test? Right? But that's how like this idea of achievement works, right? Like when somebody presents things too, and you say, okay, that's good. Yes, please. You're like, yeah, but to which one? All of it. Yeah. Or is it the other guy from Chandler Moore? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, but they're also their own individual artists as well. So if somebody was wanting to look, I saw people writing down so that they were looking for that song. I'd want them to know who the artist was. Yeah.
And I was, it's funny that you brought this up because I was looking at it this morning, and every time I like tears come down my eyes, down my eyes because we strive, we want to be. Listen to it over and over every time. A lesson from someone. Jason, you want you? Yes, that's cool. You said, okay, well,
So that leads into what I was getting ready to say is that this idea through culture of achievement, there is no finish line. There's but when we practice Sabbath, it teaches us that there's a weekly finish line. Option and that I shared, right? It's stop, rest, delight, worship. Take delight in the things that you've achieved. It's okay to enjoy some moments, to be able to stop and own it, right? Because I think when we do that as well, it helps us realign what success is or what achievement is. When you can kind of look around and be like, okay, you can realize, it was just 5 years ago I was asking for X, Y, and Z, and now I just kind of treat it like yesterday's trash. Like I'm just like, what is this? Through the idol achievement is there's a life with no finish line, and then practicing Sabbath introduces the idea of a weekly finish line. So every week, God commands his people to what? My work for this week is finished. Even if projects remain incomplete, your week for this week is finished. Even if goals aren't achieved, your work for this week is finished. Go unanswered, your work for this week is finished. Even if you don't return that call, your work for this week is finished. Even that chat through Microsoft and through everything else, your work for this week is finished. Sabbath is forcing us to trust that God will still be working even when we stop working. Is ultimately an act of faith. That's what I shared in the first class, right? That we acknowledge what? That I think it might be more of a trust thing than anything. Do we trust on working when we stop working? Is an act of faith. So I would ask you, if you're curious to think, am I underneath the idol of achievement? Ask you this question. Do you secretly measure your value by what you accomplish? by what you accomplish. Busyness. If I'm not busy, I'm wasting my life. I don't even have to ask myself the finished question. This one, I know that this is when I just not just busy, but I also have to make sure that it's apparent that I am also busy. I'm wasting my life. Business has become a status symbol, right? When people ask, "How are you?" You say, "Oh, I'm busy. Life's been busy," right? Sometimes we almost kind of, some of us might even often say it with pride, right? Like, man, I'm busy. You wouldn't believe the week I had. And then you start talking about the week that you had. The person didn't even ask for all that. You just, okay, on Tuesday it was this, Wednesday it was this, Thursday it was that. On Friday, man, I woke up, I had this meeting, and I jumped into this Zoom meeting, and then I had this other thing, and I met somebody for lunch. And then after lunch, I met so and so for coffee. Then I had to jump on this other Zoom meeting. And then when I got home, I was finally able to catch up on my work. It's like, bro, I was just asking how you were doing, bro. What is all this? Right now, the worst thing is when you get two people that are both under the idle business. Now they're both competing on who's busy. So every time if you hear somebody said sharing their busy week and you can't wait to share yours, this might be your idol as well. Life is busy. It was da 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 da, and you're like, you ain't hear anything they're saying. Like, are you done yet? Because I'm about to hit you with some busy week. You think you were busy? I'm a yeah. I got busy. You'd be like, huh? So business often masks something deeper: anxiety, FOMO, the fear of missing out, identity, insecurity, avoidance of stillness. Avoidance of stillness is one of my problems. The idea of I don't know what creates that in me. I don't know where that came from. The idea of just stillness, just doing that, just don't even it don't feel right. Angela, you have something? All right.
That's the plan. I don't want to dream about kids. I don't want to prep to like I hid my laptop, I hid my computer casing because I don't want to see it because I know I'll go on there and be creative. Hit the street. But I did it with I want. That was
The thing is with busyness and then Sabbath helping life slow down, and I think anxiety. What is it? What do you mean anxiety? What do you mean insecurity? What do you mean? So there's been an avoidance of the silence because in the silence we hear our exhaustion. But then out of the silence, that isn't the only thing that rests there in that you shouldn't be afraid of stillness and silence. That it also opens up space for something very beautiful, which is prayer, gratitude, worship, and reflection. So this out of Sabbath invites us out of the busyness and into his presence. add in here because this is one that I'm guilty of. So it's easy for me to recognize these questions. But if you're curious, if you're underneath this idol, I would ask you, do you feel important when your life is busy? Do you feel important when your life is busy? Digital distraction. I must always stay connected. We now live in the most digitally connected era ever in history. And checks their phone over 90 times per day. I mean, that's exhausting, isn't it? I didn't even know it was that, like, just hearing, I'm like, really? It's 90 times a day? It's just like, and obviously it would, I mean, it would have to be the case, right? I would, if idea than things that are happening with this smartphone loop that keeps our brain consistently going is these notifications, messages, news, social media, work alerts. The brain rarely enters deep rest. Even when our body stops working, our mind is still racing, right? So, like if you check it before you go to sleep and it's underneath your pillow and you wake up, you pull it out from underneath your pillow, you check it again, you might have a digital distraction problem.
To look at for so much and I find like every time I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to like get my phone alone. Like I caught myself a couple of nights this week. Put the health and it'd be like downtime. Mm. I have that, but I keep. I end up having to. It's me going to it. So like, this is up to took the step to have it in another room. I'm not even there yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say if you're also competitive, I would say let it send you every week your screen time. You'll be trying to figure out, oh, I got to get that lower. Or like I got mine today, and I went from like 3 hours and some change, and I'm like 4 hours and some change. Like, ooh, I got to do better.
Like monitoring how you're on your phone.
Yeah, it'll do screen time. So it's, and then you can get real fancy. You can go into it, and it'll show you what you spent your time on your phone, whether it's like what apps and different things. Oh yeah. Well, if you want to get real crazy, then you can connect it to all devices if you're Apple. I don't know about anything else outside of, but I know Apple will track your iPad, your laptop, which will be a problem. But if you have work boundary issues, yeah, connect it to your laptop. So you can create those work boundaries to be like, oh, okay, because it'll break it down for you. You can see like, oh, that time was on my laptop doing emails. Um, through I can share it after class. If you have Apple, I can get you there. If you don't have Apple, I don't know. You could ask somebody else. No shade. I'm just saying I have no idea. You hand me anything besides an Apple, it's like you handed me a phone for the first time. I'm like, what does this thing do? So I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying. But so when what's happening with Sabbath and removing this idol, it gives us back something that we've lost, and it's our attention. Priests, they're miserable. So instead of constantly stimulation, Sabbath allows us to create space to notice God, to notice people, right? Because no matter where you go, if you go someplace, a waiting room, anywhere, it's always this. But if you don't do that, you sit down, you look around, you actually notice people. And then you can, when you notice people, then you're noticing creation, and not even just people creation, but the world around you that's been created. And then you can notice your own souls. You can listen to your own soul within those moments, that attention span. So this is why many Sabbath practitioners include technology boundaries. Those of you that should be practicing this, if you have an issue with technology, you should figure out a way to be able to create a boundary from that. All right. to where it'll lock you out of certain apps if you spent so much time on those apps. And I would recommend I would even recommend because then you can just go into it and say, who cares for the day? Let me show me this app, right? Like if you have real issues, I would say leave the phone at the house, drive to a park for 45 minutes to an hour, and just like now you can't reach for it, right? If you have a real phone problem or whatever have you, like create that real space to where I don't know, get a I'm not saying to do this, but remember, like back in the day, like money guru guys would be like, or people with money, they'd say take your credit cards or whatever and freeze them in the freezer, and then like that way you won't spend spontaneously. You have to wait for it to thaw out before you can buy it. If you still want it, by the time it thaws out, then you should buy it. All right? So don't freeze your phone. Don't do that. But I don't know, get a time lock sensitive thing. But I would say filling that time with something else besides reaching for your phone is going to help you break that habit, right? It's going to be able to allow you to be able to move through that much better. Yeah, yeah. You engage with people. Yeah. I was going to say like there's something evil with like it's great to be able to look things up, to be able to access certain information. All those things are great. It's just constant stimulation prevents true rest. Like if you're always tapped into some type of stimuli, that's terrible. So if you're curious if you're underneath this idle distraction, then I would ask you when you finally stop working, do you immediately reach for your phone? Emails, made that call, like the first thing. It's like, okay, I earned some phone time now. And then you do that for however long. You're like, oh, I better get back to work now. And then you put it back in line. Like, oh, okay, great now. Did that. Mm.
but it's important. And of course, it's extra.
The effect on your attention with the digital, there's a lot of physical effects that are coming alongside um, with all that as well. So, why mention these idols? Why is it that these make these things difficult? Because when you combine all four of these forces together in modern life, productivity, the achievement, busyness, the digital distraction, life that never stops, right? So once something is in motion, trying to be able to get all of that just going, 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 to be able to stop, especially if it's been something that's been ongoing for years and so on, trying to be able to get it to stop is just going to feel very unnatural. So that's why if you've tried to practice the Sabbath before, that's why it might have felt that way. It felt like, oh, this doesn't seem right. So the truth within that is Sabbath just isn't about resting. It's about resting from the idols of our culture as well. Where it's not something that controls and predicts the movement of your life. It is declaring every single week, my worth is not my productivity. My worth is not my identity, is not my achievements, right? My life is not defined by busyness. My attention belongs to God. It belongs to my family. It belongs to these people and not my phone. Sabbath is one of the most radical spiritual disciplines in modern life because it confronts all the idols and that culture worships today. A church service every Sunday, they play, okay, yeah, cool, right? Like, oh, I might fast every now and again. Well, oh, that's great. I heard there's a lot of great health benefits from it. But as soon as you turn on and tell somebody that day is my Sabbath, they're like, it's your Sabbath? No, no, no. I stop. I rest. There's things that are happening, but I'm not letting culture define my life any further than this moment. You I think that catches a lot of people off guard. They might have a lot of different questions. They might say, like what you were saying earlier, like, oh, I think I need me a little bit of that. I need a little bit of that break, right? That comes from that. So I think, or how Sabbath is actually practiced, there's four movements of Sabbath. You probably heard me say it time and time again. Stop, rest, delight, worship. Through scripture and Christian tradition, Sabbath can be understood through these four movements. So then after understanding why Sabbath matters, right? We see what's happening within our culture. We kind of see the effects that it has when we actually practice this thing out. So what is it going to look like when you try to step into practicing this regularly and making it a part of your spiritual habits that you practice? So what does it look like? It looks like stop, rest, delight, worship. These movements form a rhythm that restores the whole person, the body, mind, relationships, and your spirit. So we're not just looking for you to just find a good Netflix show and binge that. We're looking for you to actually restore the rhythm of your life and reconnecting. So then, what is stopping? Stopping is the courage to cease. Probably going to be the hardest, like all the other things do within this could work very well, right? But I think just that first initial idea of like, I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z today. I'm stopping that today. I'm stopping the work emails. I'm stopping the work text. I'm stopping answering that call from so and so. I'm stopping da 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 today. This first movement is going to be the most difficult because it's the one thing that's going completely against all of the motion that you've created in your week and in your life of going, going, doing, and doing and doing. Again, standing on scripture, Exodus 28-10 is direct. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. On it you shall not do any work. Stop means intentionally ceasing the activities that define our productivity during the other 6 days of the week. This includes work responsibilities, emails, professional communications, productivity-driven tasks, unfinished projects. Stop does not mean abandoning responsibility, right? Still cook your food, take care of your kids,
Rather, it means acknowledge that the world continues even when we pause, right? So it was asked, and for the benefit of the rest of the class, I think it was Angela said that somebody said they like to work in their yard or something.
Me.
Oh, sorry, but you might, I don't know. But and you were like, is that if I do that, is there gonna be no, that's not connected to a work-life responsibility, right? That's something that's restorative for you. So those things that are restorative for you doesn't mean that you're cutting off all type of physical activity. If pickup games of basketball is restorative, then do that, right? Whatever cooking, then do that, right? Like cooking can be work for some people, right? But for other people, if they can just get lost in the kitchen baking, doing whatever, then go and do that thing. What we're talking about is creating that space away from work responsibilities, emails, and professional communications, such as text and phone calls, um, or whatever chat that your team uses, Slack, the group me's, whatever's on Microsoft, whatever those are, muting those. Yeah.
The Bible recap, not too long ago, it went deeply into the Sabbath.
Mhm.
And it said, whatever you do the other 6 days, go ahead and do them. Get your food ready, get your clothes ready for the next, whatever it is. But on the Sabbath day, don't do anything that you do on the other 6 days.
Yeah, it's good. And this is the hardest because it's saying that you're not doing, or rather it creates, when you're not doing it, creates a fear of falling behind, right? Like, well, if I don't, then I'm going to be da behind on X, Y, and Z, right? The fear of disappointing others because you fell behind or you didn't respond, right? The people pleasing you is like, well, I have to respond. So you creates that fear, the fear of losing control. Like, okay, man, I take one day off, everything's just going to fall apart. And then I'm going to have to spend the rest of the week trying to put it all back together. This is why Sabbath becomes an act of trust. When we stop working, we're declaring that our security ultimately comes from God and God's provision, not from our constant effort in this world. So it's a real acknowledgement that God is sustaining this world and not us. It's acknowledging who God is. The first thing that God is capable, that God is able. And if he said that we should take a day of rest, then I think he means that through the rest of the weeks that there's going to be that space, that there's going to be the world still churning and not falling apart. So it's going to be hard to kind of really work through that fear through the first couple of practices of that, right? But then you'll kind of gain like, a few weeks in, you'll be like, you know what? Yeah, the world didn't fall apart. We did all right. I got those emails done. I brought my projects to wherever they needed to be, and they'll be there on Monday, right? um, so stopping is the moment faith becomes visible, right? This is a moment like stopping and realizing I'm not touching or putting my hand on my work to these things. So stopping is something that becomes very, very visible. And then second one is, there was other things. Why stopping is hard. Sorry. Why restoring rest, restoring the whole person. Once we stop working, the second movement is rest. Rest goes beyond simply sleeping or doing nothing. Biblical rest involves restoring what has been depleted throughout the week. So you might identify with this. Humans being experience multiple kinds of exhaustion: physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, spiritual exhaustion. And then there's examples of restorative rest may include taking a walk in nature, sharing an unhurried meal, right? Like how many people's kitchen table don't even allow you to have a meal at it right now because it has stuff on it. Right? So and I heard something the other day, and I thought it was interesting that so I don't know what it was, an advertisement or whatever, saying that people on average spend only 25 minutes on lunch, and that includes placing their order. I'm like, golly, that seems quick. Say again?
We only got 30 minutes lunch.
Yeah.
And that's from the time you left the unit to the time you came back. Doesn't include walking to the cafeteria,
Mhm.
order your food, actually eating it, and then walking back to the unit.
So,
You got 30 minutes, do whatever you can within those 30 minutes.
so then why don't we try to restore order to the dinner table again, clear it off a little bit, and allow that to be unhurried? Um, goodness, where was I at on this? Uh, involves rest. So true Sabbath is going to address all these issues: the physical exhaustion, the mental exhaustion, the emotional exhaustion, spiritual exhaustion. Yeah. So unhurried meal, napping. I don't know. I can't do that. If you can do that, you have a superpower in my eyes. Or just sleeping longer, right? Reading scripture slowly.
Okay. Oh, when you like really, yeah.
Yeah, that isn't to say like so on your Sabbath day, if you're doing the Bible recap, don't do what I do in the Bible recap. I listen to it quickly, and then I move on. I'm killing myself. I'm being honest, right? So then if your daily devotional is revolving around this, then I would say on your Sabbath day, don't listen to it. Pull out your physical Bible and read it.
Okay.
Don't have a physical Bible, then pull out your Bible app, read it. Don't let it read it to you. Slow it down.
Mm.
Read a handful of, depending on how long the chapter is or whatever you're reading, read a couple verses and pause and really think that through. And if you think it through and you're thinking, you know what, I don't know if I got it, then read it again. It's okay. It's all right. So it took you 45 minutes to read one chapter. Okay, and was I'm not saying that you got to do that with the genealogies, right? Like,
Yeah, no, that's if you want to, right?
but then take it to something else. Read a psalm very slowly. Yeah. Yeah, so doing something like that would be or engaging in quiet reflection, right? Like just no noise, no extra music adding it into it. Let your thoughts, no matter how whatever they might be, right? Like let that really kind of settle in. Um so again, that's why I read Matthew 11:28. Like I said, I was going to be sharing Mark and Matthew a lot in this, is that I think that when we practice this out, we'll find Matthew 11:28 to be very true, which is come to me who all are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. The rest that Jesus offers is not merely physical relaxation, it's but deeper restoration of the soul, right? Finding all those things that's in there. And then we have the third thing, which is delight. This is enjoying the goodness of God, one of the most beautiful yet often overlooked dimensions of the Sabbath. I think a lot of people might do worship really good, the quiet reflection, but I think the delight just taking in the goodness of God's creation and the different things that He's done. So the prophet Isaiah describes Sabbath this way in the book of Isaiah: "If you call the Sabbath a delight, then you shall take delight in the Lord." Like if you are approaching the Sabbath thinking, "Oh man, here it comes again," like I'm all behind on X, Y, and Z, and you're slipping into all this fear and all these different other things, I would say take that thought, submit it underneath Christ, and then think, no, I'm going to have the opportunity to be with the Lord. Uninterrupted, nothing trying to take my attention towards different other things. I can just really be with God, have a moment with Him and delight.
Just yesterday, I was thinking, oh man, I can't do anything tomorrow, and I got all this other stuff I need to get on. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah. So it's not meant to be, the Sabbath is not meant to be restrictive or burdensome or to be like that, but it is meant to be something that's a joyful occasion. So delight means intentionally enjoying good gifts God has placed within our lives. So these gifts include meaningful conversations with friends or family members, right? Not the annoying cousin that always needs something. Um, but enjoying a favorite meal, it's okay. Enjoy like a favorite meal. Spend time outdoors, creative expression through music, art, or writing, laughter and celebration, right? All of these different things. So, in other words, Sabbath reminds us that life is not merely about survival, right? This delight is not always about survival. This lets us to really reflect on things. So, life isn't just survival, it's not this productivity wheel that we're just always on. Like, stop, rest, delight, and really experience the goodness of God for once. And this matters because it retrains our heart to recognize that God is not just merely the source of like our commands, right? He's not Santa Claus that we're just giving this list over to, like, do this, do that. God help this, God help that. Delighting is just simply being with God and maybe celebrating the things that God's already done in your life, right? That's that celebration side of things, like recognizing what God's already done and celebrating that, creating spiritual health around celebration. So Sabbath reminds us that God created the world and meant not only to be worked in, but to also to be enjoyed. So worship, recentering life around God. So this final movement of Sabbath, which is worship, is not simply a day off from work. It is a day set apart for God. That's why it becomes worship. That's why in the Old Testament it calls it holy, right? Holy, as we found said in the Bible, means set apart. So this is something that's what this is. This is that final movement. It is a day set apart for God through Scripture. Sabbath gatherings include what? Prayer, Scripture reading, communal worship, reflection on God's goodness. If you need to warm this up, I'm not one to do these. I'm being, I don't sing in the shower. I don't know who sings in the anybody sing in the shower here? If you're wanting to, it's fine. Sing in the shower. Do you? I sing in the car. Right? I feel like that's safer. Especially if I'm in there by myself. Right? I'll do that. Right? Um, so So I would say if you struggle with worship or you're wanting to be more in tune with this, then I would say get a little bit louder and a little more rambunctious in your shower with the worship music. It's okay. You're already singing whatever else in there, right? Help that set the tone for the day. I know this is like the fourth movement, but if you're hopefully you shower when you right? So hopefully increase that or your commute to work or whatever. No, not commute to work, right? Because it isn't your Sabbath, right? But if you're wherever you're driving, whatever it may be that helps you step more into worship, then work on those things. Work on it through the week. Tap into something that allows you to really kind of express yourself within worship. And then I don't invite some family in on that or other individuals or whatever have you that you want to be able to enjoy that with. Um, reflect on God's goodness. I don't do this, but Pastor Tommy does this, and he can tell you exactly how many days he's on it. Too. Do you remember he's like on hundreds of something? No, no, no. He always writes something down that he's grateful for every single day. Yeah. So reflection on his goodness is a good thing. You can do that. I'm not saying that you have to do it every day and get to 2,000 or whatever, but like there's this idea within Sabbath for you to be able to introduce reflecting on those different things. Because even in the life of Jesus, we see a pattern of Sabbath and worship. The Gospels describe him regularly participating in synagogue gatherings, aka church. For Christians today, we worship may include gathering with church community, singing in prayer, scripture, meditation, expressing gratitude with God. Worship completes the Sabbath rhythm because it reorients our lives altogether, right? It puts us back in tune with God, helps to lift us back up and restores us in that way. Because during the week, our attention is captured by what? Worship helps us capture our attention and put it towards God. So when we're doing this, our attention gets shifted away from deadlines, from responsibilities, from different other problems that might be happening in and around work or in and around life, particular ambitions. So Sabbath worship reminds us the great reality that God is present, God is faithful, and God is worthy of our attention. So then the rhythms of the four movements, when we practice them together, the movements create a powerful rhythm. Stop, rest, delight, and worship. Stop interrupts the cycle of aimless work. Rest restores the body and mind. Delight renews joy in God's creation. Worship recenters our lives on God. Together, they form a rhythm designed not merely to give us a break, but to restore the whole person. Right? I think that, you might be telling yourself, well, Pastor, I've tried a lot of Sabbath opportunities, but did you try something within this rhythm? Or did you just try to simply sleep in late and lounge around the house all day? I don't think I wouldn't call that a Sabbath. And I think that might be why you found yourself in a lot of situations where you didn't feel restored, right? I never feel restored if I felt like I woke up late and then I just lounged around all day. I never feel good about that type of a day I had. All right now. So working on these cycles. So moving forward, Sabbath is not just about taking a break from life. That's not what this is. It's about learning how to live a life that God designed and how he designed it. So let's see. So simple rules of life. So this is a practical framework for living the rhythm of rest, right? So I try to make things practical. We need to be working on patterns and practices that can help you shape how you live your life faithfully and live your faith daily. So this idea comes to early Christian communities, monastic traditions that organize life around rhythms, prayer, work, and rest. For Sabbath, a simple rule of life helps us answer 4 questions. When will I stop? How will I rest? What brings me delight? And how will I worship? You need to ask yourself these questions. When will I stop? Sabbath requires intentional boundaries. You can't just start the week and say, I'll figure it out. I would even say this, that intentional boundaries mean this. Well, I was going to take my Sabbath on Tuesday, but I'll move it to Thursday. You've already compromised it once. That Thursday's real close to not happening at all. And then you get to Thursday and you're like, well, gosh, I didn't think I got caught up or I thought where I was going to be by working Tuesday. So you know what? I'll tap back in on Tuesday. If it's intentional, you can't move it. It's there. It's set. It's a set piece. You have to be intentional. You have to set those boundaries. Have to put it in place. So you have to think about what's best for your work schedule, what works best for what time for your Sabbath maybe to begin, right? I know a lot of people think, well, you expect me to take 24 hours. Some people take a few hours a day. When does it begin?
That's what I was gonna say too. That was my feedback. Sometimes it's more difficult to do it, at least at the beginning to do it, to take a whole day. Right?
Yeah.
So I find spaces in between the day where I can intentionally spend time with God, right? That's my Sabbath, and I felt renewed, even in just these. I praise and worship in that amazing traffic every morning, right? On my way to work, I have I'm transformed by the time I get to work, and that rubs off on other people. Right? You understand what I mean? Like people see you and they see you in your rest, and it's transformative for them too, because everybody else is in the hustle and bustle all day. Oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah. But when does that time start? And again, being intentional, not compromise. Like, well, I'll start it at that or that time. And the next thing you know, you're maybe getting 30 minutes, or you're not doing it at all. So if you are giving or dedicating a particular time of that day, then be intentional. What time will my Sabbath start? What time will it end?
And I think too, like, just hearing us, you saying, teachers, when you come into the, school, it's like, oh, today is Monday, oh, this is another, it's always, and I'm like, I don't wanna be that teacher. So on Sundays, it's like, don't bother me. I don't wanna look at a laptop about lessons or nothing, because I don't want to not get the rest I need properly, and I'm coming into work on Monday, and I'm showing that I'm exhausted, I'm tired, and it's Monday, like,
Yeah.
who's happy on Monday? I am, because.
Right.
Sleep last.
There you go. See?
Yeah, and like you said, it does, like, if when I was dealing with migraines a whole month ago, for the whole month, I was just waking up every morning with migraine, and one of the ladies say, you're not that same person that was here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've just been dealing with migraines, and she was like, I want the old Martha back. But it was.
Wow.
And it's like, great morning. I say that to everybody. And if I didn't say it, she's like, you didn't say great morning to us this morning. I'm like, my head hurts so bad, it's not that great for me right now, but it does make a difference.
Yeah. So then you also ask, what activities must I intentionally stop? Then it's identifying when, the time frame, or whatever. And then name what you're not going to do. Name it. Draw the line. Like, okay, it's the emails, it's the work Slack, it's communications, it's text, whatever. Set your phone. I don't know. Define and name what it is that you're going to stop doing intentionally. So stop checking work emails, stop professional responsibilities, productive forced tasks. So the idea is that Sabbath begins when you intentionally stop working, right? So if I'm intentionally going to stop at 3 p.m. today, for the rest of the day, that's it. It's a wrap. Or, okay, on Sunday afternoon, from the time I wake up, from the time that I leave the church parking lot, it's a wrap. Or when I get home or after I have church lunch, right? I have lunch after I leave the service, I have some lunch with some friends, hang out, have a real good time. Okay. Then Sabbath ends there, right? Like you can do things like that. So let's see. And then two, you want to ask, how will I rest? Ask yourself this. Identify activities that restore you, right? Like I said, again, this isn't just lounging around the house. Think of things that boost you up and make you feel good when you do them, right? That's why I have to get my gym time in no matter what. I've lost a lot of, if anything, when I'm not practicing this well and not trying to get to sleep, it's because I'm like, yeah, I got to go to the gym. It's like, because I've done it with the kid and the wife and her schedule. There's been times when I've been at the gym at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I'm like, well, if I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow, I got to be up at 4. But there's things that I just know that makes me a better person throughout the day. Makes me a little more relaxed. I practice slowing down, right? So identify activities that restore you, right? So rest should address areas where you feel depleted. If you feel depleted physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritual, then examples of restorative practice should be taking walks outside, reading scripture slowly, taking a nap, spending quiet time in prayer, having an unhurried meal like we shared earlier. So what activities leave you feeling more alive rather than more drained? This is the idea here, right? And then 3, what brings you delight? One of the most, as shared, like this idea of delight, this has been looked over. So what could bring you delight? Cooking your favorite meal, right? Going and getting your favorite meal. I don't know. That's something that I had to share with like my wife the other day. Is like I was like, when you take the last of whatever that's in the fridge, I get upset. It's not just because you took the last that's in the fridge. That was my goal for the day, right? It's like I do X, Y, and Z. I've earned that item in the fridge. I can't stop doing this till it's there. And I do all these things. I get so hyped. And I open the fridge. No. I was like, I just want you to understand what's in my mind. It's not because I want to be upset. I just want you to know, like, it took me 4 hours to be able to achieve that.
I did just like that because the way I explained it is like, and it's bad. I'll be like, I worked really hard to get this stuff, and I get you your own stuff, and I get stuff that we share. But I'm like, when I come on there, like, I wanted something, like, I wanted something sweet, and he ate the something sweet, and I was like, dude, if you had all this other stuff, and
Yeah.
I got you, like, why can't you just because I don't eat it as fast as you, like, stuff can stay in there for a week. Yeah. That's what it is. Like, why you gotta? I'm gonna explain it like you explained it, and maybe he'll get it.
So I say that and say this that thing that I said that I worked 4 hours to be able to achieve. There is no 4 hours to achieve. Just enjoy it.
Okay.
Sit down, enjoy it. If it's that cup of coffee, right? Go out on your little patio, your front porch, or wherever. Open the door, sit down with that cup of coffee and slow sip. Right? Just slow sip the coffee. Right? Just enjoy it. Break out your special creamer or however you want to make it, right? You don't just get the Folgers, get the grind the beans yourself or whatever, right? Really delight and enjoy it, right? Or spend time with family or friends, right? Feel that with family or friends. Listening to music, enjoying nature, creative activities like writing, painting, we kind of shared that. It's just gratitude and enjoyment within that moment. And then worship is just how I worship, prayer, reading scripture, reflection, the gratitude, all those things within there. How are you going to worship, right? Put together a Sabbath playlist, something that maybe is a little bit more upbeat, or maybe not upbeat, or kind of works through a variety of different things. Or set that to where, like I said, to where it sets the tone for your day to help you practice the Sabbath, right? To get you recentered and refocused on God for the next 4 hours. That's your Sabbath, or for the rest of the day, or however that looks, working through all of those things. So,
Breaking it down, like, give me the example.
yeah.
Because last week I was like, I think I got it, I think I got it. And then I was like, and now it's like, okay, it's broken down, and these are the questions you get into the time. I mean, I took last Sunday to actually go over the stuff that you had and your additional resources. I actually downloaded a book that